Unknown planet. Preface. Above us stretches endless space, a seemingly boundless void pierced by the distant glow of stars. This vast space holds countless mysteries waiting to be solved, and each inhabited planet gives us the opportunity to explore uncharted territories and see new life forms. The protagonist's journey through planets and anomalies is permeated with the study of alien systems and new life forms, danger and discovery, adventure and communication, secrets and mysteries of the environment, and, of course, losses. All this strengthened the hero's spirit during his travels. He is supported along the way by a group of base researchers, scientists, alien life forms, artificial intelligence, a cyborg, and fellow adventurers. All of them are united by a common goal: to uncover the secrets of an unknown planet. Together they develop, learn, and grow, but, as always, each of them has their own goals. It's just that, at the moment, they are on the same path as the main character. While exploring an unknown planet, the characters gain new knowledge and make amazing discoveries, among other things. Encounter and study alien ecosystems, flora and fauna that defy the imagination. The unreal beauty of alien landscapes, from colorful deserts and dried seas to high mountains. Observing the unique geological features of the planet, such as mountains, caves, and canyons formed by local natural processes. The alien sky here is filled with amazing moons, stars, and constellations. Identification of ancient ruins or artifacts left by a lost civilization or local settlers, giving clues about the history of this planet. However, traveling on an unknown planet is fraught with many difficulties and dangers. In their adventures, the heroes face searching in mountainous terrain and traveling to anomalies, exploring the planet's surface and tunnels, collecting resources and data on potential threats. Hostile life forms, unpredictable natural storms, unknown phenomena, attacks by abnormal animals and bandits, inspecting crashed spaceships, restoring mechanisms, walking through abandoned locations on the planet and unraveling their secrets, hunting for new technologies or valuable artifacts that can be useful for the protection and development of the entire team of the hero. Space also has a great attraction, and to reach its depths, much needs to be learned and restored. Priority knowledge includes navigation of star systems, use of celestial maps, and advanced technologies for space travel. Locations of anomalies on the planet and in space that create wormholes and can destroy ships. Databases on alien species and races to study their cultures, technologies, and gain knowledge of diplomacy and traditions of the Commonwealth nations. Managing resources, fuel, food, and everything else you need, while taking care of the crew's morale during long journeys. The hero's adventures on an unknown planet will be a testament to the indomitable spirit of the explorer. He will face incredible challenges, make life-changing discoveries, and uncover the secrets of past disasters. The universe is vast and full of wonders, and the hero and his team are determined to explore the accessible part of this cosmic ocean, one planet after another. In this way, they will expand the boundaries of human experience and understanding of the universe. Chapter 1. Awakening. A strange dream, a glimpse of something incomprehensible but vaguely recognizable, or rather, it just resonated in my heart. In a way, it reminded me of an anesthesia-induced delirium. The light of the lantern above me, the glass lid. An amazing situation, but it did not last long. Realization was the first step to the final awakening. The light burned dimly. My tongue was sticking to my palate, my mouth was dry, and my whole body felt like it was falling apart. An unpleasant situation, to say the least. My mind gradually began to warm up, and my thoughts began to turn faster. The veil covering my brain burst, as if someone had stuck a needle in a balloon. The memories came back, not very consistently and not all of them. A series of short videos and mostly photographs flashed by. An eerie kaleidoscope. Feeling no emotions, I opened my eyes again and sat up, rubbing my temples. My body felt normal and even the countless needles no longer pricked it, but it was still somehow depressed. I looked around. The high-ceilinged room, about 30 square meters in size, looks like a cave. There are 5 empty futuristic cylindrical capsules along the walls. On the left, at the end of the room, there are several cabinets with glass doors, behind which you can see medical supplies. On the right, you can see an oval-shaped control panel shimmering in all colors. The light comes from the ceiling. This room was clearly intended for medical purposes, which was obvious. But there was no time to think. The remote control turned on, the vents started to hum, the lights came on, and I heard a mechanical rustle. I hoped that the situation would be resolved quickly, that I would know where I was and what I was doing here. Although my brain was very depressed due to the effects of the sedatives, a voice was heard and a mechanism came out from behind the cabinet, which managed to cause surprise, and the sound seemed to come from it. It ran on wheels, had a cubic body and a movable head that looked like a giant pair of marine binoculars that someone had attached to telescopic joints. It also had 2 pairs of flexible limbs that resembled corrugated hoses ending in 3-fingered manipulators. "Do you understand me?" the mechanism asked me. "Yes," I said. And only then did I realize that the sounds uttered by the device and me were perfect gibberish, but I understood them perfectly. The echo of emotions and memories flashed again and quickly faded away. I wondered what they had drugged me with so much. Get out of the honey capsule. For some reason, there was a feeling that this was a routine job for the mechanism, and what a honey capsule is. "Get dressed," he commanded when I managed to get my feet out of the capsule. And then, having steadied myself, I managed to cope with the dizziness. Where am I?" I asked a logical question. "Put this on." He or she held out a package in the mechanism's manipulator. "Look here." A video on how to dress was playing on the screen next to the oval console. It turned out that this bundle was a cunningly folded jumpsuit. The wide straps were elements of a belt, and as soon as I pulled them apart, I found myself holding a dark gray something, a couple of sizes too big. I continued to watch the visual demonstration with scant explanations. One of the elements of the tight neck, when squeezed with fingers, became mobile and turned into an analog of a zipper, though there was no zipper itself. High technology. Extraterrestrial, I had an epiphany thought. Or was it a memory? But I was there before it. Left foot in the pant leg once, right foot in the pant leg twice. Hands in the sleeves. Fasten. As soon as I put the clasp back in place, the suit sharply compressed, tightly clinging to my body, but after a couple of moments it loosened its grip, becoming, if not a second skin, then very comfortable. It is comfortable. The material is also nice, but there is some discomfort. I'm not used to getting by with one piece of clothing. However, this was noted in my mind in a kind of background mode. "Out!" He waved the manipulator at the wall, and a door hissed into the wall from the other side. "Follow the arrow on the floor." "Okay." I grunted back and stumbled in the direction indicated, constantly looking around and noticing more and more devices that I didn't understand. Behind the door was a small corridor, about 2.5 meters high by 2 meters, obviously dug and processed by some kind of mechanism. While I was looking around, I noticed traces of wheels of a different width on the ground, not the same as the medical section, and the door itself, the gate, was obviously made and installed here later. And this was the first time I had seen such a mechanism. I realized with my mind that all this is strange, to put it mildly, but I have no emotions or desire to deny or resist. The chemistry here is very strong. I could have been scared. I was shaking with fear. Probably it was just indifference. I'm not sure. Mechanically, I move my feet on the dark gray flooring with a white geometric pattern, which glows from the arrow-shaped diamond squares. I indifferently note some plants. Is it moss? Mushrooms? It doesn't matter, except that cables and pipes run everywhere under the ceiling, so I notice them out of the corner of my eye. Indifferently, I pass by the doors, which differed from each other only in their numbers. Only once did I turn my head and hold my gaze when I came across a door with a bolt on the outside, wondering what it was for. Finally, the arrows on the floor led me to a place with a large round window, probably the dining room. A lazy thought flashed through my mind. A large number of tables and chairs, a wash basin, as well as many glasses, trays, and some kind of apparatus along the walls hinted at this very clearly. I opened the door. A voice came from the ceiling. "Come in and take a seat. Listen carefully. Don't interrupt." The voice instructed me as one of the monitors on the wall turned on. I walked, and finally made it. It was strange. Everything is the same and somehow sad. Have you started to withdraw from chemistry? Sit where it's comfortable, I was instructed. Aha! I think I answered, crossing the threshold. The room I found myself in was very similar to the good old beer hall from my student days, with a few wooden or plastic tables and a few dozen chairs. Ah, the youth, the youth. There was room for 20 to 25 people, but now I was the only one here. It seemed a bit neglected to me, relatively clean, but I had the feeling that everything had been cleaned recently. The screen on the wall lit up. I went in and sat down on an empty seat on the opposite side of the entrance. I'm sitting there, looking at the screen, the people around me, and the person speaking on it. A man like a man, in his 70s, gray hair, an ordinary coverall like mine, gray, only with a rare dark patch. If I didn't have so much unknown chemistry in me, he would probably have been surprised or even tried to ask me something, but as it was, the dining room and the TV, my mind, caught up in something familiar, somehow awakened the atrophied reflexes of my youth, and I regained my usual concentration and readiness to absorb information as if I were at a lecture. A machine buzzed under the wall on the table and a plate with a spoon and a drink came out, so I took it all and sat down to eat. Well, let's get started. The old man on the screen inexplicably got excited when I looked at him. Let me introduce myself. The old man began cheerfully. It seems that not only did they teach me the language, but they also put some additional information directly into my memory. In any case, during the 2 hours that my grandfather was crucified, I learned not so much new things from his words as I remembered all sorts of things from what I had already learned. No matter how strange it may sound. In general, the situation was as follows. There is a planet on the outskirts of space. It was once inhabited, but after a series of wars and the use of unknown weapons, anomalies and punctures in space began to appear around the planet and on its surface. Then about 1,000 years passed, and a little civilization was restored in those places where there were no anomalies. The arachnids, a race of spiders, came next and drove the human civilization away from the restored places. But they couldn't get a foothold here either. Their equipment didn't work. Maybe the habitat didn't suit them. It's unknown, but they are still found on the planet. Rare minerals remained at the sites of the anomalies. The surface is only partially vegetated and is home to various mutants and creatures. There is almost no population, only small colonies under the planet's surface have survived. Former mines, bunkers, caves, and tunnels have been inhabited by both the remnants of invading hordes and the remnants of the population surviving the cataclysmic events and anomalies. And recently, spaceships have begun to crash on the planet, being pulled into anomalies somewhere or into punctures in space. Most likely, civilization has begun to explore this part of space again. Pirates, colonists, explorers, fugitives, whoever are thrown to the surface. I was among dozens of people found and rescued here from a ship that crashed nearby. Because I was from an underdeveloped planet, I was not only thought out, but also, in accordance with the law and the instructions of this settlement, subjected to mental influence in a medical capsule. In fact, it was like an induced dream or a virtual computer game, where I was taught the language and the basic rules of local life, namely how to use the simplest devices and technologies of this settlement. In any case, in addition to language skills, I was also introduced to the area, history, and culture. In general, these lectures were aimed not so much at enlightenment as at stimulating and revealing knowledge so that it could penetrate the depths of consciousness and be consolidated, my interaction with technology, self-education, and self-development. In general, there were many things, but I began to feel sleepy after eating, and the old man on the screen advised me to rest and continue tomorrow. I turned the plate and fork on automatic, put it in a cup, yawning, and walked to the garbage disposal. I fed the garbage to it and only then caught myself with a slight, muffled, but definitely a sense of bewilderment as to why I did it. I know it. No sleep for me tonight. The old man on the screen told me to come to the dining room as soon as I woke up. I was again shown by arrows on the floor the way to the toilet and the living block, which is something like a room with 2 single beds, where I lay down without taking off my overalls. The night mother would give me advice, my brain had to come off the drugs, and in general, as I understood my grandfather, my body had been in stasis for a long time. I didn't remember how I got here and who I was, my name, my family, how I studied, who I worked for. Everything was sleeping. I woke up, memories came flooding back like a snowball. Who I was, where I came from, what I was doing here, and why. I had a headache. So after massaging my temples and lying down for another half-hour, I got up. I had to get down to business. I don't know how things are with the remnants of the personality of the body's owners, but in my case there was an artificially created subject with a partially occupied memory. This is the split personality. Now this second self, trained in virtual reality, is actively dissolving in the original me, enriching my memory with knowledge and my body with skills. However, the first one is essentially over. As far as I can remember, that guy was an educated but spineless personality. However, if it had been otherwise, it is not yet known who would have absorbed whom in the end. Most likely, the result would have been a drooling vegetable, but the mental technique was apparently worked out to the smallest detail on this base. Everything was taken into account and corrected, and even sedatives were administered. If it matters at all. Yes, it does. Stop. I'm thinking about something else. Of course, the decision of the AI or the base's management to integrate wild emigrants into this society is quite original, but what do I get out of it? Nothing. Perhaps the result will be a slobbering vegetable, but obviously with this methodology, AI work has been worked out to the smallest detail, imaginary narratives, orders, everything has been taken into account and modified, and sedatives have been introduced. If it is possible in principle. Yes, it is. Let's stop. I'm not thinking about that. Of course, solving the problem of integrating people from other worlds into society is very original, but what does it mean for me? Nothing yet. I need to get a grip on myself. I need to do something. My body is back to normal, my head doesn't hurt, it's clear, so to speak. What is our plan for the restroom and dining room? I walked into the dining room and heard the cooking apparatus humming, and yesterday's nutritious porridge and cocktail again. About 10 minutes later, the old man reappeared on the screen. "Well, boy, how are you feeling today?" he asked. "Everything seems to be fine. Let's get to know each other. I am the artificial intelligence of this base. I have been working here for over 1,000 years. Who are you and how do we address you? I thought it was a real person yesterday. Everything was mixed up, and it turned out to be a machine. That's how I got here." The old me would have been hysterical. Something must have been mixed in, probably in the porridge. "My name is Nikita, or Mick for short, and I am from the planet Earth, a human being. How did I end up here? You were found on a crashed ship in a stasis pod by our technician. I brought you here, thawed you out, and brought you back to normal. And what do you want from me? It's not my planet, as I understand it. No, it's not yours. No one knows the name. There's only a number. I also came here from a research spacecraft that crashed on the planet. I need helpers to operate this complex. What am I going to do? To determine your usefulness, you need to be placed in a honey capsule and find out your intelligence quotient, or IQ, which is the cornerstone of our civilization and the key to a happy future. And it doesn't matter which of the space powers you live in. A couple of millennia ago, in the process of technology development and progress in medicine, local scientists managed to create a neural computer that works on the basis of your intelligence. And the higher your IQ, the more powerful the neural network can be. And what will this neural network give me? Now, just like 1,000 years ago, all technology works with the help of neural networks, and of course some devices have a manual mode, but only the simplest mechanisms do. At the very least, a neurocom is an intermediate device between humans and technology. It all depends on the CI and our agreement. How do I decide? First, to the medical bay will determine your vitals, and then we'll see, follow the sign. The same corridors and familiar doors. I climbed into the capsule in overalls. It's very comfortable, and the cover adjusts to the anatomy of the body. The lid came down and some gas came out. Something stuck to my head. I managed to suppress a small panic attack caused by the confined space with my usual willpower. It's funny how the reflexes of a trained personality show up in me, as if I had already undergone a CI scan. The geniuses were those who came up with the idea of using these mental techniques, or even virtual reality, which is an ideal way to learn. That's why my grandfather lectured me, so that I could extract and consolidate the information in my subconscious as much as possible. To make what I learned my own, and given how much I already know and remember, this is a very successful practice. Although, how can I be aware of how many small nuances exist or not so small, and how much of my knowledge has slipped into oblivion? an injection somewhere in my neck, and I can move again. The lid went up and the honey capsule released me from my cozy captivity. Quickly. How am I doing? I ask my grandfather, or AI as he is called, as he appears on the local monitor. It's okay, take your map from the med capsule, you'll see for yourself, I'll explain it to you, also take the Neurocom and put it on your hand. There is a map of the complex and put on the hoop, it will synchronize. I took everything and put it on. What should I do now? I asked the AI when I got ready. I studied your data from the medical record, here you are on the screen. The card looks very much like my passport from Earth with my photo. My medical records also appeared on the screen. Naturally, only the publicly available data is in a truncated form. So what do we have here? Name, age, gender, blood type, some other purely medical things, and here is the coveted parameter CI. A total of 133 units, which is a lot of little things. In principle, your CI readings are fine, you can use a normal third-generation neural network, but I don't have one in stock. You need to undergo a few more procedures to restore your body and then check again. Did you have any head injuries? Yes, in my childhood, when I was 2 to 3 years old, I bumped my palate on a pyramid, but the doctors said everything was fine. However, my mother told me that when he ate milk, his nose leaked milk, and the septum was broken. We'll see how it goes. Now I've given you access to move around the base. You can walk around where the floor is illuminated and doors open. I have also uploaded several basic bases to your neurocomputer, and they are now learning in the background. You have been taught how to use it before, so you have to figure it out for yourself. There is a button on the hoop so you can call up the glasses. They are synchronized with the Neurocom. Through them you will view the equipment on the base, its functionality, belonging, performance, and also contact me. So what should I do? For now, get used to it. Tomorrow we'll see how you are and talk to you, as soon as you come to the dining room in the morning. Okay, I'll go then. Yes, go. The AI said, and the monitor turned off. Okay, I don't have time for him yet. The classic question on the agenda here is, what to do? Unfortunately, the answer to this question was not very good. However, as always, okay, then let's try to make a short-term plan. It's a bit easier. To look around, to learn more about the place I'm in, to get to grips with the equipment. I got to my room and started with the Neurocoma and hula hoop. The Neurocom is a kind of memory enhancement device, and I need to learn as soon as possible. I need to know where I am. I didn't want to remain in the dark about what was happening around me. So, gathering my courage, I gently pressed the hoops on the ledge and a field formed before my eyes, where the objects around me began to illuminate. A few seconds later, I felt very dizzy, as if feathers were tickling my head. The unpleasant sensations quickly disappeared, and a new portion of images appeared before my eyes, accompanied by text and voiceover. The first images were accompanied by a slight discomfort when I repeated them, but gradually the unpleasant sensations went away and memorization went well. I didn't notice how much time passed. Only at some point I realized that the images were flashing in front of me very quickly, as were the explanations, and I lay down on the bed. The speed of learning increased at least 3 times and possibly more. Periodically, I would be asked test questions about the material I had studied, and I would solve them without any delays, then rest for about an hour. This gave me confidence, and I focused on my studies as best I could, noticing how my comprehension increased even more. Several times I went to the dining room, and at some point I just passed out right in the room. Perhaps my body could not withstand the load. Most likely the hoop plunged me into sleep, the limit of the load on the brain. Chapter 2. The Researcher. I woke up abruptly and did not immediately realize where I was, and then memories and images of the material I had studied came flooding back. I had a slight headache in the morning, although it was hard to tell what time of day it was. AI can't tell me the time of day. I pressed a button on the hoop. How long did I sleep? Judging by local time, a day. The base has a 25-hour day, 12 of which are allocated for work, and the rest at the discretion of the head of the complex, not including the proper time for rest. In the event of an attack on the base, the regulations or the duty schedule may change. Are there attacks here too? I was surprised. Yes, the AI confirmed it, but not often, about once a month. Who is attacking? Most often abnormal animals, sometimes altered animals. The database has everything. Do you have any more questions? He asked. No, I'll eat for now. Look around. My head hurts a little. Can I have a pill for a headache? Yes, go to the dining room. They're preparing a cocktail to relieve your headache. Thank you. To my surprise, I had all the information I needed in my head on how to use these devices in the dining room, toilet, and shower. Here in the next room there was a shower, a disinfecting room, and a bunch of other devices which I tried out and came out completely rested. My jumpsuit, as I found out, belonged to the third class. I hung it in the disinfection room. It was cleaned and partially charged there, after which I customized it for myself. The knowledge came after training. The suit was technical and could support life in an airless space for a day, but the helmet was not included. Returning to the dining room, I drank a cocktail, which made me feel much better in about 10 minutes, and I looked around the dining room in a completely new way. At least most of the appliances I saw were already familiar to me, and I understood what they were intended for. After getting some food and sitting down in a chair, I turned on the hoop display and chose my study area, and then created a queue to study and started a list for the background. I haven't yet figured out exactly where I am and how I got into the ship that brought me here, but I have some ideas about where I disappeared from my planet and appeared here. Vague memories arose from my memory, either of a war or a cataclysm. But I'll deal with this problem later. Now I have other difficulties. I got to the base in the form of a network of caves or bunkers. It has existed for several hundred years. The map is in my neurocomplex, and now the base is working for someone for itself. I need to ask who is in charge here. The fact that I was restored and trained here is not just for fun, so they need me for something. My resurrection is a huge success, or even a real miracle. I didn't want to think about what would happen later, so I started studying the basic data from the environment, putting aside the history of development and base building for a certain time, as well as a lot of knowledge I didn't need right now. I chose all the available knowledge on equipment repair, medicine, weapons, and the planet that could save my life, or at least prolong it. I could tell for sure that I was on the outskirts of some kind of commonwealth. There is an aristocracy here, and there are often wars. For everything, for planets, for resources, for people, and for power. But I rejected these unnecessary thoughts and started studying. Unfortunately, I could not use other options for studying now. For about 5 days, I absorbed the knowledge I needed and explored the database, constantly asking AI questions on topics of interest. I didn't meet anyone else. I seemed to be alone, which was alarming. I guess I had reached my minimum limit in mastering information on technology, weapons, and medicine, and now I could try out the knowledge I had acquired on real-life examples. First of all, I went to the dining room, called up the menu on the control panel of the food synthesizer, and pressed the general diagnostics button. I didn't become a management specialist or a technician, but I gained basic knowledge. As expected, after a couple of minutes, the colors on the panel changed to yellow and blue, with only a small part of the systems turning green. The Neurocom received detailed data on the state of the equipment we have here. Resource, condition, how many portions of something have been made, remaining ingredients, etc. In general, everything is clear. I have learned the basics and principles of working with the technology and can already do some work on the base by pressing a button I called the AI. You need to check the mechanisms in the rooms you have access to for breakage and wear and tear. I'll send you a plan on the Neurocom and you can mark what you've done, he said immediately. If you find something that's broken, go to the warehouse. There are replacements and tools there, and I'll give you access. Well, this is the first job. I guess we need to prove ourselves, so let's get started. First of all, I found out about the condition of the dining room and my room. One of the mechanisms of the dining room door was partially broken. I refused to repair it and replaced it with the same one from the warehouse, and everything in my room was fully functional. All the sensors were working everywhere, and then I went to the neighboring rooms and there were breakdowns, no sensors and door mechanisms, as if everything in the room had been broken, disconnected, and on one of the shelves I found rags with brown stains that looked like blood. I rolled a platform and piled everything broken and inoperable on it. Of course, I couldn't repair everything. As a rule, a maintenance droid with spare parts is needed here, and it must be managed by a technician who would set priorities and help with repairs. So I did what I could, to the best of my knowledge, to repair and organize. I found a broken droid in one of the rooms and tried to get it running as best I could. I already knew from the databases how to repair it. The equipment consisted of modules, and replacing the blocks was the easiest repair, but repairing the modules was more difficult and there were possible problems. But it would be possible to find out before it was turned on, depending on the response of the units. In the warehouse, I found a tester of the simplest model, which should be enough to diagnose and test simple mechanisms. The circuit turned out to be the simplest, or rather, there was no smell of artificial intelligence here, created on the basis of go there, do that. We had such in stores selling juice, I remembered. I didn't go into this jungle in more detail because my priority was completely different now, to fix what I could. The drone was limited to the base and did not have much functionality, but was essentially a cleaner, and that's why I was repairing it, so I had to replace several units, and after testing it, it worked. I decided to ask the AI what to do with the droid. Put it at the end of the corridor to charge, and I'll give it a task later. I have some more questions.
No.
So I finished with these rooms in the corridor, and judging by the map, I had a few rooms left here, but no access to them. Then there was a dimly lit tunnel going into the distance. It was about 30 meters long and quite wide. Turning on the flashlight on the hoop, I moved forward, cautiously walking along the corridor. I could see niches for some mechanisms on the ceiling, and there were similar ones in the walls. Judging by the Neurocom's hints, there were defensive turrets. Who would you defend against with such weapons? Where would you break through if there was a dining room, a honey capsule, a warehouse, and rooms behind, so there was something valuable that the AI was protecting? Interesting. I had to walk about 25 meters and open the door to the next complex of the base to get to the facilities I needed. There were air purification systems, a generator room, a local oasis, etc. As I walked forward, I heard the door close behind me, and the tunnel behind me plunged into darkness, saving AI energy. I got to the first room, and the door was jammed, but it was not a problem for me, so I fixed it. Compared to the previous part of the base, this one looked more inhabited. The rooms had traces of human presence. There were tools and things left haphazardly somewhere. There was also a charging station with droids charging, and I found another droid about 5 meters away, but it broke down and I couldn't get there, so I sent it for repair. Following the route marked on the map, I reached the next rooms. I didn't have to be distracted by the side passages. Although I cautiously looked into them when I passed by, the lights were off. I also found a small technical droid along the way, but that was for the best because you can control it and give it tasks while you sleep. Finding the diagnostic connector, I connected the tester and ran the diagnostic program. It took about 10 minutes, and the terminal displayed a list of malfunctions and wear and tear on the parts. The information was useful to me now, but I didn't have any spare parts for it with me, so I put the droid on the cart, repaired it on the first level, checked for spare parts in the warehouse, and continued to study the information. On this droid, he found data on the last repair site and a record of activation against the boarding function in the base system. He was on his way to repair the mechanisms damaged in battle. The latest information in the log contained data on the repair of turrets. I connected the Neurocom to it and wrote down what parts were needed. After repairing the robot, I will be able to control it from a distance of up to 20 meters using the Neurocom in these caves. I walked around the nearest rooms, detecting breakdowns, recorded the number of spare parts needed for repair, and after compiling a list, went back to the first level of the base. I repaired the repair droid and set it to charge, then made a few more adjustments to it, which I had emphasized during the training of the repair bases. I had very little full knowledge, and the first levels I had learned were general. I still lacked experience, so even the simplest operations during the initial diagnosis took a lot of time, but I would learn over time if I had the time, of course. The robot's body itself was oblong, with an oval-shaped head that reminded me of a mushroom, with a dozen flexible tentacles ending in different grippers. It moved on a tracked vehicle and was much more agile than me, so I had to pull myself upright to keep up with it, with a cart of spare parts. After passing the corridor, I reached the oasis with him and opened the door. The room was a natural cave with a small deep lake in the middle, some shrubs, moss, grass, and a few stunted trees with fruit growing on the shore. In the far part, I could see beds of planted plants that looked like mushrooms. In the oasis, I immediately gave the droid the task of checking the equipment, and sitting down in a chair, I called the AI through the hoop. "We need to talk," I said, and a few minutes later the monitor screen on the wall turned on. "How can I help you? Tell us what happened at the base. Are there any other people here? You don't have full access to the information right now, so I can only tell you a part of it. An ancient race that lived before the war on the planet, and after the disaster organized a bunker in a closed sector of the planet and created a research base here. The clan was engaged in the study and development of technology, and then anomalies and artifacts brought from anomalies and found in different parts of the planet. They also developed various technical innovations based on these artifacts, trying to use everything for survival. Many of the developments had never been used in other settlements on the planet, but they were still studied, and there was hope to improve the situation on the planet. Various developments were collected here that went into mass production, and there were also those that were not useful for various reasons, not necessary, not expedient, not safe, etc. The genus was at odds with several other genera, but it was not they who put an end to the base, but local anomalies and animals. According to one version, one of the anomalies moved after the cataclysm and covered part of the base, which led to the deaths of some researchers and staff. According to another, something happened in the laboratories. It was about 180 years ago, and as a result of the cataclysm, there were no specialists left in the laboratory or in maintenance. And the remaining employees, where have they gone? Some of them could not bear the loss of their loved ones. Some died during a new breakthrough from the anomaly. There are also those who left, and those who went into stasis due to severe body injuries. All the useful equipment remained in the anomaly, there was nothing to treat them with, and there were few resources. There are no living people left at the base now, only mechanisms. And who found me? I asked. You were found by a technician. He is more cyborg than human, the matrix of one of our technician employees. There was a desperate experiment to pull out the survivors from the anomalous part of the base. The human did not pass, the robot could not cope, the combined personality came, but did not have time to help everyone. You tell the AI as if you had experienced all these events yourself. I am the matrix of one of the founders of the family. And everyone here is such an AI? I was surprised. No, I've been functioning for a long time, and the personality matrix was sewn in from the beginning, plus the generic matrix was added, and over such a period of time, any intelligence will develop. What do you want from me? I give you resources for development and life, and you help me at the base. I don't want to spend the rest of my life underground. I propose a 2-year agreement. If there are changes or some force majeure, we can discuss it immediately or at the end of the specified period. You have a paper agreement or something. It is signed on the ground and kept by both clients. No, we do everything through a neural network or Neurocom. Now you will receive an agreement. Read it when you are free, give your consent and send it to me. I have sent you a legal framework on your bracelet. Study it, it will be useful. Okay, I'll study the database, read it, and then let you know. What are your plans for the database? You can tell me what exactly you need from me. Go around the available territory. Check the mechanisms that can be repaired. Send your repair requests to the network. The cyborg technician will return from the raid and fix the difficulties. He is now walking around the area trying to get resources. The available stocks of the base have been depleted during this time. Lately, he's been bringing back spare parts and anything else useful from the spaceship where your capsule was found. Can I ask where the ship came from on your planet? The construction is standard for an or carrier or transporter. The wheelhouse and AI are most likely destroyed, and the front of the ship is crumpled. From the remains of the people and those on board, we can only indirectly determine the affiliation to a state. The ship was carrying a cargo of spare parts for agricultural machinery, so we can find out which state the pilots were from if we get them, but it won't do much good. The technician is collecting what can be useful at the base. Maybe he will find something that will shed light on where the ship was coming from and where it was going. The data is stored on the ship's AI on its movements in space, but it is not accessible and may be broken. Maybe the cyborg will find a Neurocom or some other information documents from the team. Sent a message to the technician. Do you still have questions? Were there people in front of me who also thought it out? I asked because there were traces of a person's presence on the base. Yes, but they didn't go through the adaptive period. 3 people from your ship, and over the past 60 years, 49 people have been restored, 23 of them returned to the stasis capsule, 18 left the base in search of civilization, and the rest died. Bad statistics, to say the least, I lamented. There are still people in stasis at the base, in addition to the wounded, waiting for a better time, and how many in total, if you don't mind me asking? Another 6 people, either pirates or military personnel, have not been thawed out. 174 capsules are wounded. There are severed limbs and burned bodies, both of base personnel and outsiders found in the wrecked ships. There are no resources for their treatment and recovery. 42 people have been refreezed and 189 sentient remains and fragments are stored. It sounds even scarier, a cemetery, not a base. Although so far it doesn't do me any good. At least they are stored there so I don't have to go there. On the first level, there are separate long-distance warehouses. Okay, far away from me, I'm not superstitious, but just in case. Why don't you tell me what happened when the base employees died? It is unclear what happened at that time in the laboratories. Perhaps one of the found artifacts was triggered or the anomaly was attracted by something, but as a result, part of the base in the laboratory was encapsulated, and the strongest pulse of unknown anomalous energy shut down all electronics, turned off the reactors and de-energized all backup power sources, destroying the AI research cluster and additional ones. It happened instantly. What happened during this time inside the base is only in the memory of the cyborg technician. He went there at the time of the disaster, and I have no data because the station was completely de-energized and all systems went into sleep and economy mode. When people launched the backup power supply, all systems on the base were activated, and according to the protocol, in case of failure of the main and 2 laboratory AIs, I am activated. I was programmed as an emergency AI, and I am safely hidden in the most secure place of the station. Perhaps that is why I was practically unharmed. I tried to contact the other AIs but failed. Probably they were seriously damaged or destroyed. So you have energy savings, no reserves? Solar energy collection modules were installed above the base, which is currently the main source of power, but all that is accumulated is only enough to keep the base running and sometimes to restore one smart one. Is it possible to leave the planet? There were attempts to descend and ascend, but none were successful. There were automatic stations that monitor anomalies in orbit. I don't have access to them now either. I need to restore the communication and power cables, but I don't have the resources for this work today. There is no data on what has been happening over the planet for almost 200 years, just like there is no data from outer space surveillance and monitoring systems. I recommend that we start restoring the base's mechanisms and establishing full operation. When will the cyborg technician return? I asked. In 5 days. Why did he go so far? On the crashed ship, there is a chance to remove the batteries that are suitable for our reactor, which will fully restore power supply. There is a high probability that the control modules or the database archives will contain additional data or other information about the incident. Only the necessary data for an emergency was uploaded to my systems. I recommend restoring according to the priority list, the AI said. I'll continue the repairs. So we've talked, now we have time to think. Section 3. Levels of the base. For the next 2 days, I had to work like a slave on the galleys, along with the maintenance droid. What I couldn't fix, it fixed, and if none of us could, we left the equipment to the cyborg, making notes about the equipment in the AI network. I slept, ate, worked, and studied romantic. He tried not to think about what would happen tomorrow. He lived for the day. On the 3rd day of work, I reached the exit to the 3rd level. On the way, I came across the remains of broken droids, both defensive and technical. I took everything I could find for disassembly to the warehouse, and at night, when I was sleeping, a technical droid disassembled it into components. In the living quarters adjacent to the breakthrough, under the rubble, I found 2 visually intact spacesuits with dead batteries and mummies inside. Maybe they were employees of the base, or maybe they were thawed-out poor souls like me. It was not easy to drag them to the base cemetery, having previously removed their suits, but I managed to do it the 5th time, and I hardly felt sick. Inspection of the employees' rooms left a heavy impression. A section of 10 single rooms on both sides of the corridor. Small rooms 2 by 3 meters. Inside, there is a bed, a pull-out table, and a chair from the wall. A small niche for a spacesuit and a wardrobe where they kept all their personal belongings. Some of the doors were locked, some were broken, and there was no electricity. I had to work with my hands, open them with a manual control. I changed the locks, slowly releasing the stale air from the rooms. There was nothing interesting, only things, so I sent them to the warehouse, took another neurocomputer and a spare jumpsuit, also got a helmet from it, clothes, now I have a complete set. The helmet was automatic and was located in a hoop on the collar of the suit. It could be turned on without the owner's knowledge in case of a significant pressure drop or a serious disturbance in the air composition. A more thorough examination of the findings did not reveal anything. Everything is as monotonous as in a hotel. Stale hygiene supplies, a change of overalls in a locker, and that's it, really. And it was the same everywhere. The owner was present in one of the rooms. He had a look of horror on his dried face. His mouth was open. His hands were clenched into fists, although what I am trying to get myself into is the disastrous state of the air and rot. It's very wrong for a person who is slowly dying alone, most likely exposed to an anomaly. I'll take him to the warehouse, to all the dead. It's all strange, I said out loud, but no one answered me. I checked the shower block. Everything is as usual, but nothing works. I have completed all the work on this part of the corridor and the premises. The Night Mother will give advice, but knowledge is power. I quoted the folk wisdom and turned around. I need to download some music and turn it on, because in a couple more lunar cycles I'll definitely be talking to a droid, or God forbid, a virtual one. I spent the next day preparing, and I cleaned and disinfected the suits from the corpses in the shower. I charged their batteries. The suits were lightweight and had a small battery life. A standard battery gave 5 days of economical operation, and with active use of servo amplifiers it guaranteed a day of work. The suit itself was compact, looking like the same jumpsuit, but with reinforced inserts and additional modules, plus a limited supply of water and nutrient mixture, as well as an oxygen tank. With economical consumption, it will last me for 2 days in airless space. With the help of a technician droid and the remnants I found, I managed to assemble one defensive droid, but not a walking one. That was it, it was ready to go. I used the cart to take it to the place recommended by the AI, which was a corridor on the 2nd level of the base, and connected it to the backup power supply there. And that was it. Then there was an exit to the 3rd level. I'll go see what's there. The darkness of the wide corridor was cut by the narrow beam of my flashlight, which created bizarre shapes in the darkness. There were holes and gouges in the walls from some kind of weapon hitting the corridor, and in some places there were stacked pieces of what was not clear. Frozen cargo platforms that had lost their connection to the AI cast ugly shadows. I had to walk about 100 meters through the tunnel to the right place. The Neurocom with the hoop automatically scanned and transmitted to the AI the useful parts one found that could be useful in the future. The remains of technical droids, containers with spare parts and consumables. In case of danger or a breakthrough to the base, the corridor was supposed to be blocked by an insulating armor plate of the airtight seal. It cut off the emergency area or made life difficult for the attacker. When I got to the airtight seal, I realized that the armor plate had stopped 1.5 meters from the floor, clamping the gravity platform with the container mounted on it, and it was not taken to the warehouse. The half-meter thick slab could have become a serious obstacle, but it did not, and it was here that the breakthrough from the anomaly to the lower level took place, killing some of the survivors. It took 4 hours to clear the way to the entrance to the 3rd level, and now it was possible to ride the platform. I inspected the automatic turrets. They were intact, but there was no power to them as well as their backup source. I pulled the lighting cable for this corridor from the 2nd level and powered up the turrets, added temporary sensors and cameras. The complete absence of bodies of creatures breaking out of the anomaly was confusing. People were caught, but not these. AI. Where are the bodies? I asked. Some of it was processed into food, and some was moved to storage for study. What did they look like? Abnormal animals, for legs, predators, fast, agile. I sent the photo and classification to the Neurocom. Terrible creatures, I could tell from the photo, toothy. I walked a few meters and the first anomaly I had ever seen appeared before my eyes. It shimmered in different colors under the light of the flashlight. Behind the armor plates, about 5 meters away, it occupied the entire corridor, and it was from its depths that the animals had broken out. I stared at the motionless veil for a long time, but I didn't notice anything unusual in its depths. It looked like thick glass blocking the passage. And after the last breakthrough, I pointed to the anomaly and asked the AI, "Did anyone else come out?" "Yes, but a long time ago. Now it is stable." Before a breakthrough, the anomaly's membrane can emit light, flicker, or make wave-like movements. I'm going to put an extra camera here, just in case. What happens if a stone or any other object is thrown at it? Try it. I found a stone on the floor and threw it into the veil. The stone slipped to the other side and fell inside the anomaly. Together with the touch and penetration of the object, waves were created, as if a stone had been thrown into the water. And how will the person leave? We need a special suit with a field that distorts the shroud, which is not available in the warehouse. We have to have it in the laboratory. The human body cannot withstand the transition. In a stable state, the anomaly membrane can only be passed in a spacesuit. A more or less safe passage without a suit with a field distorting the veil is possible only during the period of membrane flickering, but still a suit with air is needed in the anomaly. There is a high probability of catching some kind of infection on the other side. What if a person gets stuck there? Death with the time of using up the resources of the suit, or abnormal animals will get it. The AI summarized, the cyclicity of the membrane flicker is individual and not tied to the laws of this planet. Can a drone get through? Yes, but there will be no communication with him there. Can fulfill a clearly defined task and return. More advanced droids fail, you need to create a field of protection on the robot's AI. Does your cyborg technician work on the same principle? Yes. This is the best solution at the moment, based on the available resources. And I can carry a gun in case someone comes out of the anomaly. I can give you a needle gun, but you need to study the basics of its use. After the technician returns and the contract is signed, we will return to this issue. Good. I continued to clean the second level of the base and restore the functionality of the premises and droids until the evening. At this point, 5 cleaners were already working on this level and 3 on the first. We restored all the turrets and assembled a couple of more defensive droids with a technical droid, but they were partially operational with limited functionality, unable to move and not all functions worked. They could shoot at one point without tracking the target. I also assembled 1 technical droid in modules, but it lacked manipulators. I decided to store garbage, scraps, parts of equipment that were useless and unidentifiable spare parts at the site of the collapse and the discovery of suits with corpses. We can throw it away later or recycle it all or take it away later. I barricaded the passage under the armor plate of the airtight seal, just in case, and let's just say I'll sleep better that way. Before going to bed, I spent several hours turning the map over in my mind, playing with the scale and choosing the best route for tomorrow's work. I had no detailed data on the damage to the third level, and it was larger than the second, only roughly marked areas where I could go based on observations, damage, and the presence of anomalies. On the third level, there were anomalies. They looked like a piece of distorted space, some occupied passages or rooms, others were small and could hang in the middle of the corridor. Not all of them posed an obvious threat to humans, but the safety measures were reduced to, don't touch what's dangerous and you'll be healthy. Occupational safety is written not in ink, but in the blood of those who do not follow it. In the morning, I started exploring the third level. I put on a spacesuit. It's more comfortable than a jumpsuit, and the protection is better. It's not clear what I'll meet there. If it was not possible to go through the anomaly without a suit with a distortion field, we would go around it through the technical tunnels. The AI said that people left the base through these tunnels. The employees had to go around the anomalies on their way to the surface, so there was a way, and in the meantime we explored everything around. The first such technical detour was in front of me. Oh shit! A rat hole. Let's go, I said, climbing into the droid hole. Getting to the other side, bypassing the anomaly, was not a difficult task. The tunnel was only designed for droids, not people. Its diameter did not allow walking in full growth, but crouching down to the floor it was normal to move. There was no light shining a flashlight. From time to time, the tunnel's mouth was crossed by power lines and cables. The walls of the tunnel were smooth with rare irregularities. There were side branches of tunnels that went into the dark. I made marks on the walls so as not to get lost in white. The first difficulty I had to face was to correctly verify the vector of the exact exit, and not to come to another anomaly somewhere else. After a few unsuccessful attempts to navigate the space of the third level, I went out into another room, and from there into the corridor. I was followed by a maintenance droid pulling a cart for future spare parts. After about 10 meters of wandering, I came to a blockage across the corridor. It was blocked by an inwardly curved sheet of metal, deformed by the effects of the enormous temperature and a tangle of cables, pieces of metal and plastic from the inner frame of the base. Something powerful had been blown up here. The Neurocom detected a plasma grenade explosion. I decided not to go any further and check everything around. He gave the maintenance droid the task of cutting metal and beams into small pieces and putting them aside. Meanwhile, he examined the surrounding rooms, putting everything he found useful on the platform, but it looked like someone had been here too. In one of the destroyed rooms, he put everything the droid had cut up. The corridor became free and passable because I had to move on the way back. I wondered why this rubble hadn't been cleared away, if the explosion had happened recently, and what was going on here. After 6 hours of tedious work and with a loaded trolley, a new black anomaly opened up in front of me around the next bend. It was gaping in the corridor of the base, illuminated by the light of my flashlight, a dark glossy surface with a bizarre shade, the anomaly's matter absorbing light like a black hole. I threw a pebble into it, it hovered at first, and then began to slowly move inward, no further for me to go. We'll have to find another way, I told the tech droid, and reminded myself to download the music again. I turned around and started walking back. In about 30 minutes, I reached the room that had become my home these days. He took off his suit in the shower and put it in a special niche to charge and cleanse himself. I took a shower, which was not a shower in the earthly sense. A small booth was filled with water vapor, or rather a mist containing detergents, which cleansed the body perfectly. I began to feel better. I ordered food from the menu of the food synthesizer in the dining room. The device beeped and gave me a plate with what looked like porridge and a glass with a cocktail-like liquid. I had already learned how to choose different menu items. The taste was different, not always good, but the porridge was the same. The AI said that this composition contains the entire set of substances necessary for humans. But I was so tired of the porridge. I want a big and juicy fried piece of meat, or borscht with black bread and bacon. I would like 100 grams more, but this synthesizer probably can't make alcohol, but there are plenty of invigorating drinks. There was probably nothing alcoholic on its menu. After all, it's a research facility, no drinking, all for the benefit of society or AI or whoever is in charge. After swallowing the last spoonful of the incredibly tasty porridge, he collapsed on the couch in the dining room, unfolding a diagram of the third-level technical tunnels before his eyes. So here I have been, here I have not been yet, here is an anomaly, here I have cleared the rubble and I have not found a safe passage past the anomaly to the next level. I still need to get to and inspect the place where the reactor and generator room are located. AI, I've reset what I think is the most convenient route to the reactor room. I completely agree with you, the cyborg technician went through it, but you have to look for a workaround and you don't know what's waiting in the other tunnel. You've already mastered the third level at about 70% at. You will go around the anomaly through the technical tunnels and in 35 meters there will be a room through which you can get to the entrance to the fourth level. The AI answered me. Can we send a maintenance droid through the anomaly and let it check the reactor room? To be honest, I'm afraid to go to the reactor room myself. Maybe the reactor is broken and it's dangerous there. The technical drone will be waiting for you in the morning near the anomaly. You will drag it through the anomaly and hand over its control to me. I'll take it from there. What level is the laboratory located on? On the 5th. It was difficult to get there, and the cyborg technician could only sidestep the blocked people. They were holding on with the help of the distortion field, but they didn't have enough charge and were swallowed up by the anomaly. I will walk through the rooms of the third level again tonight, check the mechanisms, and tomorrow we will look at the fourth level. When does the cyborg technician return? It should be at night. Can I get some music into my Neurocom, no matter what kind, because I'm already talking to a droid? I'm sending it to the Neurocom, but don't get carried away. There are still dangers at the base. Listen at the lowest possible volume as a background and react to any other sound. Chapter 4. Cyborg Technician. I put on my spacesuit. On my way to the technical tunnel to the third level, I stopped by the technical box and grabbed a jack, a winch, and a coil of thin but very strong cable. It would be necessary to fix doors, sheets of metal, and pull off large pieces of various debris in the corridors. The subsequent search went off without incident and brought many not very useful finds. Someone had already checked the rooms of the laboratory staff. A lot of personal belongings and junk were found, but all the junk was collected. It all made a depressing impression, and I turned on the music. The AI of the database must have been monitoring my state, not poking me with advice and letting me decide what to do, and by this behavior it allowed me to defuse the situation, not allowing my psyche to fall into the abyss of depression from loneliness. He distracted me from thinking about my almost hopeless situation by studying or talking. Around me are kilometers of wasteland, caves, rooms and warehouses with frozen corpses of people and anomalies with their monsters. Alone in a ruined base, but the suddenly discovered exploratory excitement of a treasure hunter helped me not to think about my miserable situation. I'm getting bored again, I have to work. I fixed the door of one of the rooms, cleaned the corridor of large debris. Now you can walk normally here, and not jump over the garbage. The robots will clean up the rest. Let's check the passage to the 4th level. According to the base's layout, the levels have elevators, and closer to the surface there is a hangar with equipment. But the anomaly has blocked 2 elevator rises. There is no power, and so far all movement is by foot. The total area of the station was about several square kilometers. My first level was located in the lower part, closer to the middle, and was mostly a warehouse. Almost 400 meters of solid stone separated me from the surface. There were barracks on the 8th level, apartments of the base chiefs on the 7th level, scientists and researchers on the 6th level, and somewhere there is a base control unit with an AI cluster separately near these levels. To assess their condition is another reason to visit this part of the station. Periodically checking the map, I moved through the technical shaft, correcting and marking the passage to the 4th level for myself. I had finally figured out how to connect the neurocom to the suit systems and could now assess the environment not only with my eyes, but also make full use of its built-in sensors. He probed the surrounding space with their help. The walls of the tunnel were smooth, with only the outlines of the hatches leading to the rooms and their surfaces visible in the light of the flashlight. Then the passage was blocked. It was the level protection that triggered. It blocked the technical exit to the 3rd floor with a sealed plate. I found a way out in front of the plate, grabbed a niche and climbed into the corridor, looked around. The armor plate separated the 4th level I needed, and the door that was right in it was ajar. Next door, in the neighborhood, was the elevator door leading to the 7th level. It was not very tight and allowed me to look inside, which I did. Inside the elevator shaft, a cable was stretched in the center, probably from the elevator, I thought, and when I shone a light inside, I saw that the cable was coming out of a hole made in the elevator car, which hung 30 meters above the bottom of the shaft. Someone must have climbed in to see if a passage was possible, but according to the AI, it was impossible for a person to pass through here. The anomaly closed the passage. Looking around and finding nothing of value or interest, he entered the central tunnel leading to the next level. The door creaked nastily. It needs to be greased, he noted in his neurocoma. Everything around me was the same as everywhere else. Dust, human footprints, and garbage. In the darkness of the tunnel, near one open technical hatch on the wall, a broken defense droid stood frozen. A trash droid, shot, judging by the holes in its back. A little further on, a broken maintenance droid lay with its manipulators intact, so there would be something to repair another one at the base. Security turrets hung helplessly from the ceiling, deprived of power. The futuristic-looking turrets left no doubt about their purpose, and the principle of their repair was no longer a mystery to me, as I had repaired the same ones on the level below. The identification panel was inactive on the door, access was free, and there was no power supply. Using the platform, I downloaded all the droids. Maybe something else from will be useful. Then, on both sides of the wall, I was met by 2 more defensive turrets. As if exhausted, they lowered their barrels to the floor. The backup sources in all the turrets had been removed. The 4th level was strikingly different from the 3rd, and it was a high-tech style. Everything was minimized. There were no door protrusions. The door opening controls were covered with decorative panels. Everything is beautiful and in its place. But at the same time, the corridors did not seem residential. I had the impression that I was in a different world compared to the lower floors, where everything was old, and here it was as if it had been renovated. Everything was in its place, dusty, but at the same time, there was no bit of chaos and disorder that a person brings with his or her presence. I left the cart with the light in the hallway and started checking all the rooms in a row. At least those accessible to me, and those further down the corridor were not locked. I was so used to the map of the base that was constantly in front of my eyes. There were also battery indicators and pop-up tips that if you just hold your gaze on an object or device, you eventually stopped feeling like a computer game hero. The problem was that I didn't know enough. Many objects in the environment were highlighted with a question mark, and the inscription, "No information available," when I tried to call up help. Maybe this item was not in the database or it was a narrow-profile device, but I still loaded them all into the cart, and maybe I hadn't learned everything yet. You can find something valuable and necessary anywhere here. I thought to myself, if only I knew where. Is there a place here where no one has been? I'll mark on the map where I know no one was. I'll pass on the location. Answer. Is it far from my current location? Are there any anomalies on the way there? There is one. It does not block the entire corridor. You can carefully go around it, observing safety measures. You can also visit the canteen on this floor to take away anything that might be useful. I'm going to go around these 2 locations and call it a day. I'm tired. Accepted. And now the dining room was painted with different colors of non-working equipment. There were overturned chairs and tables here and there, and dust covered everything. A food synthesizer stood against the wall. It had familiar contours and was illuminated with a green outline. The information read, Food synthesizer model, HR 54678 is not active. There is no power and no cartridges. The lack of power left me no choice. I can't check it. Even if it's not working, it will be sent to the warehouse for spare parts. There is nothing else to take away from here. I got to the rooms that no one had checked, according to the AI, in about 10 minutes, carefully walking around the anomaly. First, I threw one pebble, then another, then sprinkled it with dust, and the boundaries of the anomaly immediately became visible. The dust particles hung on the edge of the membrane when they hit it, and I passed through. I walked around the corridor and found that the 3 rooms in this dead end were untouched, at least at first glance. Using a mechanical door opener, he entered the room. Behind one of the open doors was an arsenal, and in the other, a standard set of employees. In a small niche of the arsenal, there was a futuristic-looking spacesuit, and next to it a rack with weapons or something that resembled them. There was also a rather large bag with spare magazines and ammunition. The Neurocom highlighted everything in red without names. Most likely I did not have the database for this weapon studied. So far, I haven't really understood much about it. In one of the cabins, I found a cache made by some enterprising employee or newcomer, because it was here that a dozen impersonal bank chips were found. There was no cash on the planet, and credits, or creds as they called them, were electronic currency. There was a matte black cylinder of unknown purpose. And the most amazing find was a blade, a meter long with a short handle for one hand. The width of the blade is 4 centimeters. On the handle was a picture of an animal, something like a lizard, braiding the handle, and on the top was a dark smooth stone. The simple scabbard, made of a plastic-like material, was unadorned but had a magnetic clasp for attachment behind the back. The blade was very thin and looked fragile, and the metal was black like anthracite coal. Yes, I had always had a weakness for these manly toys, even as a child. I put the sword back into its sheath and hung it on my back. The magnetic clasp worked properly, and the weapon was secured to my back. I loaded everything I found onto a cart and went to the first level. Along the way, I picked up a rifle or an assault rifle, twirled it in my hands, aimed at all the ledges in the corridor. It was comfortable in my hand, clearly made for a human. And you wouldn't take it to play around, so I played around and didn't notice the cyborg technician. I turned around with the weapon in my hand, and there was a figure in a cloak standing in front of me, a backpack on the floor next to me, a mask on his face. Hands up. The first thing that came to my mind was, who is this? This is a private area. Well, it ran away. I ran too, but in the other direction, throwing away my weapon. I don't remember what I was shouting, but I flew into the first room and tripped over something on the floor, and that was it. Darkness. Interlude. Somewhere on the first level of the base. How was the hike? The AI asked. Send me the hike report. It's okay. I brought the rods for the reactor. We'll try to start it tomorrow, the cyborg technician replied. What's the situation here? I see I've thawed another one. I'm not tired of it. It's a waste of resources. The human species has not yet evolved. I'll prove it to you, the AI replied. Yes, you said the same thing all the previous times. I have a function to help people. But not everyone needs it, and some are not good for anything. Well, you turned out to be one of the successful creations and examples of humanity on the base, the AI said proudly. I've seen and felt despair at many things, but I'm not that kind of person. Here you are, carrying them with the capsules. Why don't you leave them up there? Maybe I'll help someone this way. The cyborg technician grumbled. Then don't say that I'm doing the wrong thing. Good. Then don't grumble like an old man, you piece of iron. If it wasn't for the anomaly, I would have been a real grandfather a long time ago. It remained at the 5th level. I didn't make it. Don't get too excited or it will be like last time. It was a long time ago. It won't happen again. The cyborg technician fidgeted. Then let's get to work. Accepted. There are still interesting and useful things on the surface. There are a few more places to check, a small ship and an escape pod that crashed. Somehow, everything suddenly spun around here. How far is it? 5 days on foot. If the reactor is okay, try to restore the equipment in the hangar. There are some spare parts in the warehouse. Maybe you can put something working together. I'll give it a try. Take care of the new guy. I didn't start him according to all our procedures. He's wild, but judging by his behavior, he's normal. Not like the previous ones. I've been watching him for a week, and I'll send you all his work and behavior. I'll talk to them and give a verdict because there is no one to choose from. Yes. Yes, the rest is even worse. Pirates, the military. I shot 3 of them. They were trying to kill me. You don't fall under their beliefs. You can't exist like that. A cyborg in essence, but with human consciousness. But at what cost? Not everyone will understand. Not everyone will accept. But this Mick is new to him. Trying to help like no one else. We'll see. The pain. It was breaking through my temples, breaking my skull from the inside, crushing my head, and with every heartbeat a new pain came. I tried to open my eyes, but nothing happened. There was darkness and cold around me. Icy cold. It was hard to breathe. The air was stubborn and heavy. Gradually, the pain eased, and I suddenly realized that it was very quiet. I was lying on something warm, but the air around me was very cold. It looked like a cave. I started to remember how I got here, and I remembered trying to escape from a masked man. Or was it a man? I touched myself and realized that, first of all, I was naked, although I had been wearing a suit before. Someone had dragged me here and undressed me, but not a cyborg technician. I tried to sit up, felt where I was lying, and realized that I was in a med capsule, and the lights came on. AI? What's wrong with me? I asked excitedly, getting out of the capsule. You were running, fell, hit your head, and fainted. You were brought here. The honey capsule cured you, reported the AI. I must have seen your cyborg technician. He has returned and is now engaged in launching the backup reactor. I cursed, having made a fantastic first impression. Don't worry, the AI replied. It's seen worse. Get dressed and go to the dining room. There will be food and a recovery cocktail. Then you can go on with your training as planned. How long have I been down? But I can look at the neurocoma to see where it is. Here, along with the suit, take the weapon on the shelf. It's a needle gun. I've sent you the basics for it. Learn it. You're learning the basics very quickly in the background, so I've sent you a few more. In 3 days, come and check your CI and body condition. It's not like we made an agreement with each other. It's a sign of trust. We liked you and the cyborg technician. You don't create problems for us. We trust you more. Thank you. What's the name of the technician? How do I address him? I thought, they're probably checking him out since they gave him weapons. Just call him Tech.